This Revolution of 1688 was the overthrow of King James II of England by a group of English parliamentarians with the Dutch stadtholder William III that lasted till 1689. King James had made military preparations for the defense of England over the summer and fall of 1688, and his army, at about 25,000 men, was numerically bigger than the force brought over by William. For the first time since the 1640s, England was faced with the prospect of civil war. After gathering political and financial support, William crossed the North Sea and English Channel with a huge fleet in November 1688, landing at Torbay. After only 2 minor clashes between the 2 opposing armies in England, anti-Catholic riots in several towns, James' regime collapsed. Parliament had gained powers over taxation, over the royal succession, over appointments, and over the right of the crown to wage war independently, concessions that William thought were a price worth paying. William's wars profoundly transmuted the British state. Their massive costs led not only to magnification of modern financial institutions, most eminently to the Bank of England founded in 1694, but additionally to more preponderant scrutiny of crown expenditure through parliamentary committees of accounts. The Great Fire of London started on the evening of September 1st, 1666, when Thomas Fariner, the king's baker, failed to extinguish his oven. He went to bed, and sometime around midnight, sparks from the smoldering embers ignited the firewood lying next to the oven. Soon after, his house was in flames. Fariner managed to escape with his family out an upstairs window, but a bakery assistant died in the flames. He was the first victim. Sparks from Fariner's bakery spread across the road to set fire to Thames Street, where warehouses were packed full with flammable materials such as candles, lamp oil, alcohol, and coal. These stores set fire or exploded, transforming the fire into an uncontrollable blaze. Bucket-bearing locals abandoned their futile efforts at firefighting and rushed home to evacuate their families and save their valuables. It had been a sultry, dry summer, and the wind further encouraged the flames. The city ascendant and titles struggled to tear down buildings and engender a firebreak, but the flames perpetually took over them before they could finish their work. People fled into the Thames River, dragging their possessions, and the homeless took refuge in the hills on the outskirts of London. On September 5th, the fire weakened, and on September 6th, it was put under control. The explosion of buildings with gunpowder extinguished the flames. The Great Fire of London destroyed 13,000 houses, about 90 churches, and many public buildings. The old St. Paul's Cathedral was eradicated, as were many other historic landmarks. An estimated 100,000 people were left homeless, but within days King Charles II had set about reconstructing his city. To avert future fires, most newer houses were built with brick or stone and separated by thicker walls. Narrow alleyways were banned and streets were made wider. Fire departments, however, did not become a fixture in London until well into the 18th century. The bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, had been known in England for centuries. The plague commenced in the East, possibly in China, and quickly spread through Europe. After the disease would affect one person, their entire household would be sealed off, condemning the family to death. Whole communities were wiped out and corpses littered the streets as there were no one left to bury them. By August, 15% of the population was wiped out. Many fled to unaffected places, but the poor had no choice but to stay. The plague spread to many parts of England, and the victims were buried outside of the city walls. It is said that they have never been disturbed since then. As a precaution against the plague coming back, the grassy embankments below the city walls are sites of plague pits. In some villages, they would fill these pits with vinegar, as it was known to kill the disease. The plague lasted in London until the late autumn, when the colder weather helped kill off the fleas.